we extend a warm welcome to all of you. My name is Ishika Goel, and I'm your host for today's session, Tobacco, the Real Cause. Before getting started with today's event, we would like to introduce our club. YRC is one of the most notable clubs of VIT Vellore, with the motto of service before self. From organizing blood donation camps to performing skits on social issues to our campaign against substance abuse, also known as CASA, we have uplifted our motto every time throughout these years. Even in the pandemic situation, we have been actively conducting several events online to spread awareness of various social issues and work towards the welfare of the society as a whole. But before getting into the topic of the day, I would request Anupriti, our follower YRCN, to share with us the brief account of World No Tobacco Day. Over to you, Anu.
Thank you, Ishika. So each year, the World Health Organization holds World No Tobacco Day on May 31st. Their goal is to spread awareness about the risks of tobacco use and how we can make the world tobacco free. Did you know this year's theme is Commit to Quit? This campaign encourages people to quit tobacco for a healthier life. To create awareness, several exhibitions and events are organized by WHO to make people understand its harmful effects. The discourse surrounding tobacco consumption has always been negative. However, little has changed over the past few years regarding how much tobacco is consumed in India and around the world. The harm caused by tobacco and nicotine is increasing exponentially. For instance, let's take the case of Amanda B. The US government's Control for Disease and Addiction Center's climate campaign against smoking. Amanda was 13 when she smoked her first cigarette, and her addiction only worsened to her adolescence and adulthood until she was pregnant with her first child. But an addiction, especially one that has developed from that tender age, is difficult to stop without proper rehabilitation and treatment. So she found herself smoking through her pregnancy until she delivered prematurely, only to lose the child later. Today, of course, Amanda has the CDC
Uh,
lead campaign.
Anupriti, Anu,
Yeah.
we are not able to hear you. Can you repeat?
Mm, am I audible now?
Yeah, you can. Can you just repeat because you weren't audible for the last 1 minute?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it fine now?
Yeah, it's fine now.
I'll start over.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for letting me know. Yeah. So each year, the World Health Organization holds World No Tobacco Day on May 31st. Their goal is to spread awareness about the risks of tobacco use and how we can make the world tobacco free. Did you know this year's theme is Commit to Quit? This campaign encourages people to quit tobacco for a healthier life. To create awareness, several exhibitions and events are organized by WHO to make people understand its harmful effects. The discourse surrounding tobacco consumption has always been negative. However, little has changed over the past few years regarding how much tobacco is consumed in India and around the world. The harm caused by tobacco and nicotine is increasing exponentially. For instance, let's take the case of Amanda B., the US government's Control for Disease and Addiction Center's primary campaign against smoking. Amanda was 13 when she smoked her first cigarette, and her addiction only got
Anu,
worse. Yeah,
yeah,
am I
I'm so
still
sorry
on?
to yeah, but can you just hold your mic in front of your mouth because your audio is still stuck in.
Okay, just a minute. I'll just check with my connection. Can you hear me now properly without the earphones? Yeah. Okay. I'm very sorry again. So I'll just start. So, the discourse surrounding tobacco consumption has always been negative. However, little has changed over the past few years regarding how much tobacco is consumed in India and around the world. The harm caused by tobacco and nicotine is increasing exponentially. For instance, let's take the case of Amanda B. The US government's Control for Disease and Addiction Center's primary campaign against smoking. Amanda was 13 when she smoked her first cigarette, and her addiction only worsened through her adolescence and adulthood until she was pregnant with her first child. But an addiction, especially one that has developed from that tender age, is difficult to stop without proper rehabilitation and treatment. So she found herself smoking through her pregnancy until she delivered prematurely, only to lose the child later. Today, of course, Amanda helps the CDC lead the campaign against tobacco addiction and encourages other addicts to come forward and share their stories. This is but one story of many that exist abroad and in our country regarding the harm caused by tobacco. There are approximately 120 million smokers in India. According to World Health Organization, India is home to 12% of the world's smokers. More than 1 million people die every year due to tobacco-related illness. As of 2015, the number of men smoking tobacco in India rose to 108 million, an increase of 36% between 1998 and 2015. Smoking and stress are closely related, and often high nicotine or caffeine consumption is coincident with highly stressful work or personal environment. However, research has shown that smoking actually increases anxiety and tension. Nicotine creates an immediate sense of relaxation, so people smoke in the belief that it reduces stress and anxiety. Over time, smoking increases one's risk of having heart diseases, which might also result in one's death. While the obvious harm of smoking is lung disease and cancer, it can also result in cases of self-directed harm and violence. The brain develops extra nicotine receptors to accommodate the large doses of nicotine from tobacco. When the brain stops getting the nicotine it's used to, the result is nicotine withdrawal, which can cause anger or irritability. Further, the cultivation of tobacco engages the labor of children throughout the world in extremely dangerous environments, which has both immediate and long-term consequences for children and society. Therefore, it's necessary to step up and tighten legislation around the sale of tobacco, increase avenues for rehabilitation, and cut down on tax and habits for tobacco industries, and take steps in curbing the consumption of tobacco without necessarily opting for a blanket of ban. Back to you, Ishika.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Anu, for your wonderfully acquainting us all about the effects of tobacco consumption. So today we have the Hibiscus Foundation for Social Welfare, which is a non-profit organization led by today's youth. Their primary focus has been to work for mental health advocacy. The foundation aims to foster awareness and empower adolescents against various industrial tactics and other influences used by tobacco industries that provoke the youth to buy their product. They have conducted several workshops about the same. The boost in the awareness can be evidently seen as it has impacted 11,750 plus people to quit tobacco. Today we have with us Ms. Aksheyaa Akilan and Mr. Manoj Dinakaran from Hibiscus Foundation for Social Welfare. And due to some personal reasons, Ms. Kavya will be joining us later. So, Ms. Aksheyaa is a global mental health and no tobacco advocate, special educator, managing director, and founder of the Hibiscus Foundation. Whereas Mr. Manoj, the Officer of Research and Projects of HFSW, he has about 2 years of experience in research department with respect to, but not limited to health-based projects and including topics like tobacco. So, can you both tell us more about your organization?
I will quickly explain a little bit about it, and I'll pass the mic to Manoj sir to explain about the various projects that we've been working on. So, like you already said, Hibiscus Foundation for Social Welfare is a youth-run, youth-led, non-partisan organization which is less than 9 months old, and the sort of impact we've had in the last 6 to 7 months in various age groups has been a really it's been a learning curve for all of us, and it's also helped the people who have been on the receiving end of our information or knowledge or anything along those lines. And as of now, we are an organization that actively works towards mental health advocacy, which includes providing pro bono counseling and a lot of other pro bono services. So I shall let Manoj sir explain the different projects that we do. So you will be able to better understand how we actually make the impact.
So, hi everyone. So, initially, the organization started as a small initiative of young volunteers, a group of friends who just wanted to start off, creating awareness. And now we are an organization with more than 70 plus volunteers working at different capacities. So, when we started, we were all focusing on to let's say advocacy primarily through social media, but we wanted to get into action. So our first and foremost step that we wanted to do was to make sure that we were able to reach out to people who are in need of dire help of mental health resources. So that's where we started our first project, the pro bono counseling services from Hibiscus Foundation for Social Welfare. So the pro bono counseling services is open to all, and it offers the counseling services in two levels. One is completely free, and one is at a sliding scale payment, where the clients may choose to pay whatever they may feel, or if not, that's also completely fine. All we hope to do through this particular project is to make sure that people are able to reach out and get mental health help, because in this period of pandemic, not just the pandemic, even before that, a lot of if you take India as a country, we are not having enough resources in terms of mental health, and we wanted to make a change in that. We wanted to make sure that people are having access to mental health services, and so we kick started it off. Now we have our clients across the globe also. So we have more than 200 plus hours of counseling provided with our wonderful, wonderful counseling team. So that is the first project that we started off with. Second, again, as a mental health organization, we felt it was paramount that we address the issue of tobacco, because a lot of youth were getting themselves engaged and addicted to tobacco related products. And a lot of them were seeking out help actively, and it was not available as much. So we wanted to also address that. So we started off with the WNTD project, the World No Tobacco Day project, in accordance with WHO's World No Tobacco Day project itself. So we started off the campaign with workshops for schools children, and then we moved a little bit to colleges, and we expanded, and we were able to reach out to more than 12,000 students across the nations and to tribal communities also. So we have been doing that, and we are continuing to do so. So that is about the World No Tobacco Day project. As an ancillary to it, what we also did was to spread awareness about the ill effects of tobacco, how to get de-addicted from it, the mental health perspective, the physical health perspectives to the tobacco on our social media platform also. So it is, and it continues to be an active part of our campaign. So that is the second project. Third is something very special to me because I am the host for the Stress Free Friday International. So I provide guided imagery sessions to both national and international participants. So the Stress Free Friday project started as a small relaxation session to be given to our organization, because people were working hard and it was the pandemic. We wanted some way of relaxation to go on with. So we started off with the organization, and we opened up to the public, and we had a huge response to it. And we were giving it in a national level in an IST timing, and slowly we had participants across the globe from London, Canada, Texas, Dallas. So people were texting us asking for a session in their time zone. So we started providing stress free international for our viewers and our family members across the nation. So that is about Stress Free Friday. The next important project that came into our line was about providing human rights justice. So though so we started off when we were looking into a lot of problems that were happening. We found out that there was an increase in domestic violence and a lot of gender-based violence against women, especially. So we wanted to help in some sort of way. So we started the Human Rights Project, which started giving free consultation, legal consultation for anyone who were in requirement of it through our legal team. So we have a wonderful legal team as well who are willing to help people to seek advice on how to move about seeking justice for the injustice done to them. And right now, we are actively working on generational equality. It is going to be another cornerstone project for the foundation because in this age, in this particular year, we are much focused about gender and gender-based violence. Not just that, youth are becoming the forefront warriors of all the to fight against the social injustice that is happening right now. So we wanted to help in that capacity as well. So we have started the Generational Equality Project that will address about a lot of social issues that are surrounding gender, sexuality, gender-based violence, so on and so forth. So these are the few projects. We are also having a few other projects like climate action and so on that are in the pipeline. So that's a small brief about the projects that are there.
If I
Yeah,
may, so it's just that though we do have different projects that address a lot of different things, we take an intersectional approach, and tobacco has been the forefront of our battle in almost all sectors. So let's take the pro bono counseling project. We do have a lot of clients who are addicted to substances who come to seek help. Likewise, for stress free, when you talk about guided meditation and imagery techniques, stress free is a mechanism for people who smoke. It's an alternative for them to curb their thing and take like a first step forward to distract themselves from smoking behaviors and thoughts. And when it comes to generation equality, feminism and tobacco has been a very important topic that has actually increased women smokers. So I think we'll be talking more about it in the session today. So we'll bring it up over there. So thank you so much. That's it from our end.
okay. This was actually very enlightening for us to know about your organization. So I would like to direct my question. So it is everyone, irrespective of being a smoker or not, is aware of the ill effects of smoking, yet they keep up with their addiction. So, like, what is the major reason behind it, and like, how can we convince them not to?
If I may. Right. So there is a huge difference between knowing and following, right? Especially in terms of tobacco because it is more to do with addiction. There is an intricate balance of psychobiological aspects to this that makes a person override their cognitive thinking to continue to smoke, right? Because the cognitive drive in a person who's smoking is so strong in this aspect that when a person tries to quit, right, the urge for them to continue to smoke is much harder, right? It's like a person gasping for breath, due to the withdrawal symptoms that they go through. So nicotine is one of the biggest contributing factors to this addiction. So what happens is that when you take nicotine, it starts producing hormones, certain specific happiness hormones that causes the person to be, get themselves associated and stay in that cycle, the vicious cycle of addiction, which makes it very, very hard for them to quit. So that is one part of the problem. Second, you have the peer influences, the peer pressure that is happening, the socio-cultural aspects. So it is a whole plethora of things that is actually keeping a person who is addicted to smoking. It is not that they don't want to quit. It's just that there are a lot of factors that govern them, that actually influence them to continue to smoke. How do we convince them to quit smoking? Well, you have to be compassionate first of all, and
Yeah.
try to provide them with a lot of resources and help, because that is what is lacking in the current society. People who are smoking do not have the right help at the right time, because of which they continue to be in the vicious addictive cycle. I hope I was able to answer the question.
Yeah. So also, like, I have one more doubt. Like, phrases like smoking is injurious to health and tobacco causes cancer. We see these all over the packages. So, like, do you really think if this is an effective thing in your opinion? Like, this is your opinion.
I'll take that question. So, when it comes to labels that say smoking causes cancer or smoking is injurious to health, it has taken decades for anti-tobacco activists to actually put that label on the tobacco products, and the amount of fight and battle that went into it was unparalleled. And when it actually got on the labels, there was a decline, not an immediate one, but there was definitely a decline in the number of smokers globally. And there is definitively clear indication and evidence that it increases, consumers' knowledge and awareness about the issue. However, at this point, it has become a very desensitized thing, because it's just there, it's everywhere. And people who have a confidence that they can quit whenever they want, they think that they're not addicted, they think that they have the power in them to just stop smoking the very next day, have this taglines has absolutely no impact on them, so according to studies. And one important thing with regard to the youth is that the youth and adolescent population have a psychological, belief that they are immune to everything. So this is called personal fable, right? So they believe that that they're special and unique, and problems that affect the society does not exactly affect them. So it is a common belief that the youth hold, and this makes them more susceptible to the concept of consuming tobacco, because none of these disclaimers are actually effective to them. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay. So I've also seen like we know how prevalent the tobacco is in our society. Like that, everyone knows someone who consumes tobacco. So, like, how would you suggest we can help someone who is actually addicted?
I'll take that. First of all, we need to understand that addiction is a mental health illness, right? So, and because it is a mental health illness, we must treat it very carefully, right? If someone is addicted to tobacco, the first step is to make them feel that they are not alone in this process. Most of the time, when we see a person smoking, we are averted to them. We start, being very harsh to them. We start, kind of ostracizing them. That pushes them to the brink of thinking that, okay, I'm alone in this. I'm not going to get any help in this process. So why don't I just go ahead with it? So that is where we need to start making changes. So that is the first step. So we need to make sure that they do not feel alone in this, and they will be supported in their journey towards recovery. If we are able to be a little more compassionate in that one tagline, I think we can make a huge difference. And in my research experience and in the organization's advocacy through the year, we have found this to be actually effective and actually working. So I think that is the first step we can go ahead with. Hope that answers the question.
I hope that our hard work really pays off. So, like, what are the signs that we should look out for, like, for to suggest a person if he's leaning towards an addiction? Like, at what stage should someone intervene to prevent an occasional smoker turning into a chain smoker?
So I'll take that. All right. So, I will answer your question, but I will also add on something to your question after this. So first off, some of the basic symptoms of, addiction by itself is, there are some, like a lot of studies quote a lot of numbers of cigarettes you need to smoke for you to be addicted. And, like an average, it says more than 5 cigarettes per day would consist of, as it would be categorized as an addiction. But to answer, and also addiction means they'll be craving the product, they'll be withdrawing from it, they will have a lot of symptoms, they'll have headaches, they'll have fevers, they'll want to consume the product at any cost. But also they'll have they will go and smoke when they need a coping mechanism, so that would become their coping mechanism because they believe it reduces stress or anxiety in them, which might not be true, but it is what their belief is, and they think it's a coping mechanism. So now, to answer the second part of your question, at what stage would a person intervene on an occasional smoker turning into a chain smoker, is why do we have to wait for them to turn into a chain smoker, or why do we have to wait for them to even be an occasional smoker for us to stop them? Because it's always easier to stop them from just consuming tobacco initially, especially in the age group 13 to 17 or 13 to 18, then go all the way to stop them when they're becoming a chain smoker, right? So that's just something I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, that's actually right. Like, why should we let them smoke in the first place? So, teenagers try out cigarettes and other tobacco products out of curiosity. So, like, how can we prevent this from becoming an addiction? Like, also, like, which is like the most vulnerable age for the people to fall into this addiction? I mean, I do have friends who, like, out of curiosity, they wanted to try this out, but I don't support them. So, can you like answer this question for me?
I would like to take that. So first of all, we need to understand that it just takes a single stick of cigarette or a vaping product or an e-cigarette is all that is required to get yourself addicted. Because the products within themselves, for example, a single stick of cigarette contains more than 100 chemical elements, and one of the most predominant one of them is nicotine, which is a neurotransmitter agent that will actually cause your brain to go hazy and get addicted to it. So it's just a single cigarette. So now the question which you're asking is two-part. That is, first, the curiosity one, like how due to curiosity people are starting to smoking, and how do we prevent it? And the second, what is the vulnerable age group, right? So the first one is like, if we are aimed at preventing tobacco addiction, then not smoking it would be the best course of action. How do we do that? Policy changes. Governments and other agencies must take the step forward. I would like to quote an example. In fact, it is a very recent example. New Zealand a month ago banned tobacco for anyone who is who was born after the year 2004, which means an entire generation and the next generations that are going to come after 2004 will not have access to tobacco, which means we are protecting the future generation from addiction itself. So you might have a question like, what about the people who are born before 2004? So for them, we need to start doing what we call it as intervention measures, which also New Zealand has started doing it, right? So they started providing with a lot of affordable intervention measures, a lot of resources for the people to quit. So this is one of the best ways to prevent. Policy changes and advocacy, the first and the foremost one. Second is to make sure that there are enough available resources for the people to take over and get help from. Now, the second part of the question, in terms of vulnerability, in my research experience, again, this is in my research experience in tobacco control and study, for the past year and a half, we have seen children as small as 8 years old, 7 years old smoke. Because again, as I said earlier in my first question, when we were talking about how people are getting addicted to it, like where is it happening from, there are a lot of factors involved in it in different levels. You have the psychosocial behaviors, you have the cultural aspects to it, so on and so forth. So people as small as 8 years start to smoke. But to give a number, I would say between 10 to 18 would be the most vulnerable to get addicted to it, because cognitive thinking is still in the process for them. They are not fully developed. They do not know how to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. And moreover, they are impulsive. Right, so we take quick decisions. We make, when you're an 18, you're like, you have the most strongest cognitive thinking at that point of time. Like,
Yes,
I will
yes.
do this, I can do this, and I will do this. So this kind of a thinking is kind of gets the process even more vulnerable. So I think 10 to 18 would be the most vulnerable in terms of addiction.
Yeah, okay. So, the greater the restrictions, the more people are inclined towards that activity. That is a human nature. Like, if you restrict someone from doing something, so he will be more curious to do that thing. So, is this the same for the smokers as well?
Well, it depends on the age group, first of all, right? A growing body of evidence suggests that schools' smoking restriction can curb the youth smoking behavior, both on and off the school premises, right? There are a lot of studies, like when restriction was enforced, a lot of people have shown withdrawal from tobacco. And in one of the schools that which I'm not allowed to disclose, but I will give it as an example. So one of the schools which we did our workshop for intervention. So we saw that we had a discussion, a lot of discussion and a study in the school itself. So they had a cultural inclination towards smoking. So children were actually smoking in school, let's say between 8th standard to 10th standard, so on and so forth. So people were smoking there. But when the new management stepped up and they wanted to make a change, they started levying a lot of restrictions both inside and off campuses. They started educating the parents and putting a lot of restrictions and monitoring for the students. And you won't believe that actually reduced a lot of people who were smoking, and people have even gotten smoke free. Students have gotten smoke free. So it greatly depends where we start, right? So studies have suggested that consistent enforcement of school tobacco policies results in fewer observation of smoking in school grounds, as well as lower rates of smoking lower rate of smoking among students. So I think restrictions will make a change in the society
Yeah.
with all the researches that has been previously not done just by us. A lot of research reports suggest for this. So yes, I would
Yeah.
believe so.
Okay. So, another question. How does consumption of tobacco affects a person's mental health?
Mental health. All right, right. One needs to understand that this is going to be a twofold level answer, right? First of all, we need to understand that your physical health is reflective of your mental health. Whatever changes that you make to your body will directly affect your mental health. And when you are affecting your whatever changes that you're making to your mental psyche can affect the physical health. For example, you have heard a lot of incidents where a very weak looking lanky man, lifts, a huge weight like a car or something just like that out of sheer, you know, force, just like that. So their psychological effects. So a psychological cognitive drive is pushing a person to do such stuff. So physical health and mental health are in parallel tandems, right? When you affect one, the other gets also affected. So when your physical health is affected, invariably your mental health is also affected. So in terms of tobacco consumption and smoking, especially with respect to mental health, you have a lot of psychological effects manifest in it. So in the previous statements that was spoken by Aksheyaa or myself, we see that people get ostracized, right, from the society for smoking, and we kind of shun them. We kind of look out at them in a very meager manner. So that causes a lot of things like depression, low self-esteem, stress, so on and so forth, right? Now, coming to the physical aspect of it, your addictive behavior and the production of hormones in a wrong manner, right? That's what I would say. There are technical terms, but I would highly use this term: wrong, unlawful manner of production of hormones in your body.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that there are more than 100 chemical elements present in it. There are radioactive elements like thorium, polonium, poisonous elements like cyanide present in the tobacco. So what these do to a human body is they make our body produce hormones and other chemicals that are not required in the body. So our entire human system functions on the basis of hormones and chemicals that are produced. So when there is altercation, even in the smallest level, it will directly affect your physical health. So your physical health starts deteriorating, right? So a person who is smoking cannot be physically active and healthy. They will start receding. So that receding will put a strain on their mental health as well. So a lot of things goes between the physical and the mental health aspect. So therefore, consumption of tobacco affects a person's mental health greatly alongside a person's physical health. So they are intact. Hope I was able to answer that question.
Yes, that was a perfect answer for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say, like, stress is often seen as a justification for a smoker. So, is this true at some level? Like a smoker, if he is saying like I like to smoke, so is he really trying to release his stress or something in that manner?
I would severely, and seriously disagree with this point because
Obviously.
smoking actually causes stress. This is a fact that a lot of people do not know or tend to forget or oversee, right? Many people who smoke do so because they believe it calms them down, right? There is a huge difference between relaxing and numbing your senses. Tobacco has nicotine and few other products that are sensory that causes sensory numbness. They do not relax you. So what they're doing is your body. Imagine that your body is actually going off with alarms and screaming for help, and smoking what it does basically is just shut off the alarm, like you hitting the snooze button every day morning when you're trying to wake up. So basically that. So it just hits a snooze button, all right? Because this is because majorly because nicotine is a mood altering that and it seems like the smoker's feeling of frustration, anxiety, and everything is elevated, but it is not being elevated, it is just suppressed and numb. This is actually proven, and I mean, you have about 30 years of research made on this telling that smoking does not relieve your stress, right?
Yes.
On
Yeah,
the
I totally agree
contrary,
with that.
it starts increasing your blood pressure, increases your heart rate, tenses your muscles, like it actually constrains your muscles, constrains your blood vessels. So it all these factors which I just pointed out increases the stress in your body. So that brief moment of so-called relaxation or so-called elevation of stress is actually your senses being numbed and your brain thinking, yes, I am being helped right now. Smoking is helping. This is wrong, and I urge all the youth who are listening to this to please go read actually about this. There are resources available. You can do this on your own. Just go check out and see and understand that they are not actually reducing your stress, but they are actually contributing, adding to the stress more. So when you stop smoking, actually, what happens is that you have this brief, point where your senses are numbed, and then suddenly the withdrawal effect, the numbing effect goes off. So your body suddenly jump starts and starts screaming again. So at that point of time, you feel like, okay, I need to take another cigarette. So this lasts for another. So the effects of this numbing senses lasts a maximum of a maximum of minutes. So after a minute, your body and your brain starts thinking, okay, something was helping me right now that is gone right now. I need more of this. So get yourself acquainted to more of it. So get me a cigarette right now. So your body starts screaming for it, and it increases the stress even more and more. So yeah. So it does not help you reduce stress, but actually adds to a lot of stress.
Adds to it. So my next question is actually like very important to your topics and research. It's according to a survey, 34.6% of the adults, out of which 47.9% are males and 23% are females, consuming tobacco. So why is this smoking prevalent in men and than like more in men than women?
Right. So why men smoke more and women smoke less? All right.
Yeah.
Well, in my perspective, actually, you see, because the thing is, if we need a concrete answer as to why men are smoking more than women, we need to do a synchronic and a diachronic study, right? And if we are doing both a synchronic and a diachronic study through the time periods that we are having resources or information from, it is going to be a huge lot of effort and time and data that needs to be collated, validated, and proved. So it is going to be a very huge study, and I think very less study is actually available on it. So what I would see is that when in my research, in my perspective, per se, so I will answer this question. So globally, the world gives biased freedom to men, because and biased freedom to men, and it oppresses women. So women are oppressed, men are given freedom, because of which men can get away and have the freedom to do anything and everything they want. But
True.
if a woman tries to do that,
Yeah.
it's a whole different story. So when you see in the society itself, when you go to a traditional South Indian family and tell, you know if you tell your friend is smoking, your parents might be a little averted, and they might say, if it's a man, if it's a guy, they'll be like, okay, fine, he's a man, he smokes. But if you say
True.
a friend of yours who's a girl who's smoking, they will literally go ballistics and be like, stay away from this person is wrong, and so on and
Yeah.
so forth. So it's a whole different story. So this is a cognitive, I would say this is more like a biases that is existing in the society, because of which men are more empowered to do whatever they want. That leads them to take up drugs,
Yeah.
product, psychedelic products, and they can get away easily with it, whereas women can't, because the society is influencing and enforcing it on them. So maybe this restriction on women, so as we talked about earlier, we had a restriction, so women have restrictions, so they are smoking less compared to men. So this is my perspective, but if we need a concrete answer, we need to do a synchronic and a diachronic study, which will take a lot of time and effort. So yeah.
So restriction is the main point over here.
So restriction
Restricting both the genders will actually help it.
help. So restriction is the key here.
Okay. So okay, just example, what if smoking is banned in the public spaces? So will there be an effective method to prevent the spread of the passive smoking?
I think Aksheyaa is back. I think she can answer this question better compared to me. Aksheyaa?
Hi, I'm so sorry. I had a little bit of connectivity issues on my end and I got disconnected.
No issues. No issues.
All right, so let me know if the internet is not stable enough. I will repeat the point. Right, so when it comes to restricting smoking in public places, it in fact has been done in multiple countries, including India, in fact. And a lot of people don't seem to know that, because we held a few events just yesterday, and people came up and said, don't you think it would help if like smoking was banned in public places? I'm like, it is banned in public places. And one of the major things that I wanted to point out is that and I used to live in Geneva, and smoking was not only banned in public places, but also in office spaces, especially in the headquarters of all the UN agencies. It was a directive given by the WHO saying, no UN employee should be subjected to secondhand smoke, because that's not what they chose to do. And not all agencies implemented it, but they did implement it in all the headquarters of organizations. So now, keeping this in mind, will it help curb secondhand smoking? Drastically, yes. But again, not all places are public places, right? So when it comes to homes, people are, if a parent is going to smoke around a child, that child is getting impacted by secondhand smoke. Yes, it'll curb it, but it wouldn't eradicate secondhand smoke, is my answer to that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, can raising taxes on tobacco help reduce the consumption of these products? Like, probably in India, most of the people think like higher the price of anything, they wouldn't buy it. So, do you think will it help us?
Absolutely. So increasing the tobacco taxes will directly affect on increase of the product cost itself. So when there is an increase in product cost, people will think twice before buying the product. So now this is the greatest problem in India itself. Let's take right now, people are there is a lot number of people who are smoking because one, tobacco is accessible and it is cheap, right? So people can just walk into any store, a normal store, and they can just buy a packet of cigarette under, let's say, 50 or 50 rupees, which is not much for many
Yeah.
a lot number of people. So that, and you get a pack out of it, so people can just start smoking very easily. So I think increasing the taxes, right, will actually increase the product price. That will have a direct effect on number of people who are actually smoking. Second thing is accessibility. Since it is cost efficient, it is accessible to all. When we increase the price, let's say if a cigarette is going to be 300 or 200 rupees, imagine it won't be accessible in the lower grades. So the problem starts there at the grassroots level, at schools, colleges, right, and rural areas where it is more accessible. So I think
Yes.
by making it less accessible, by increasing the prices, will help a lot in reducing the number of people who are going to smoke. So,
Okay. Next question for you guys is like, can tobacco affect a person's sexual libido?
Would you like me to take that question, Aksheya?
I'm sorry, can you please
Can
repeat the
tobacco
question?
affect, yes, can tobacco affect a person's sexual libido?
Yes, so I will take that question, but I would also like to add a little bit to the previous question.
True.
The one about taxes. So it is actually the single most effective way, according to the World Health Organization, to curb, and also discourage people from even starting to smoke. That is, and also taxes is meant to be used for social goods. So which means the tax that you take could be used for potential social programs to further reduce tobacco consumption. It is The WHO has like a 6-point program on how to curb tobacco, cessation of tobacco in general, and increasing taxes is one of the major points. Is one of the 6 points that they focus upon. I will move on to the next question, and I will answer the second part of this. With regard to a person's sexual libido, it's a few parts to it. It has a few parts to it. So when it comes to males, it reduces the sperm count in males drastically, and it's been proven by multiple studies. And Anupati had said in the initial stages of this conversation itself, it impacts pregnant women in an unparalleled fashion. It not only impacts their health, but it also reduces the birth weight of a child, and it also causes like premature births, and it impacts a lot of. It biologically impacts a lot of people in multiple ways. So they are also mood suppressants, which also make them numb, which also reduce their sexual libido. And people in a lot of places think that's not true, because they don't. It's not that you do something and then you immediately feel the impact of it, right? So since you don't immediately feel the impact, people don't associate the negative consequences to actually smoking, which does not exactly prevent them from smoking initially, because of the you'll get to know more about the process of addiction and everything in the upcoming questions, but we will. So yeah, I'd like to end my answer there. Thank you.
Okay. So like as we kids are more about the trends these days, so there's a new trend amongst the teenagers of e-cigarettes and vapes. So like how do you think these are different from the traditional cigarettes, and if they actually affects differently to the people?
I would love to take that question. So that is a huge myth and convention amongst the youth, youth, these days. And literally every person who wants to experiment cigarettes wants to start it with e-cigarettes or vape because they consider it more safe. So
Yeah.
this is because the reason started because back in the days what happened was. People started realizing the ill effects of tobacco. So the industries wanted to come up with new strategies to market their product in one or the other way. So they said, start smoking e-cigarettes. It's much more safer. It is much more effective, and you won't get any problems with it. It's much more safer than traditional cigarettes. Similarly, they started telling the same story for vapes. So it kind of caused a false misinformation to the youth. So when the youth started seeing this, they were like, oh, wow. So I can actually try a cigarette without having any consequences. So let me get started on this. But the biggest factor which everyone forgets is that invariably, inevitably, these products are still developed from tobacco. The core component is always going to be tobacco, and tobacco in e-cigarettes and vape are in their purest form. Like, let's say if you need 10 milligrams to create one single stick of cigarette, you would need 50 milligrams of tobacco to create a single, a cell for a vaping product. So the concentration of the tobacco is amplified in your e-cigarettes and in your vapes. So what happens is that the detrimental effects which they are going to cause will be higher. So this is a myth, and people need to understand that they are no different from traditional cigarettes. If not, they are even more harmful to traditional cigarettes. Now, am I suggesting go smoke traditional cigarettes? No, please stop smoking.
Yeah.
It's very bad for the
Obviously.
heart. Right. So that is that.
Okay. Like, how can we help people around us who are trying to quit tobacco or smoking or anything like that?
So I'll take that, and I'll let Manoj add on in the end if I missed anything out. All right. So there are a lot of things that you can do, but to start with, you respect the fact that they're actually quitting. Because you find someone who smokes a lot, and they have a friend circle, and their friend circle is like, "Oh, you're not gonna quit. I don't see you quitting. Like it's just not happening. I've seen you smoke like 10 packs of cigarettes a day, right? Like that needs to change. When someone tells you that they want to try to quit, you're going to have to support them in every way that you can. You also check up on them regularly. You talk to them. You say, "Hey, how are you doing today?" And you tell them that it is okay for them to talk to you about this, and that you are a safe space for them, and you will not judge them even if they slip away. And because even then they can come back and try, right? So and a few other things that they can do, like behavior wise, is that smoking is a thought that like consistently runs in their heads. So you can help them by being around them, taking them to movies, or like taking them somewhere that, I mean, once not a pandemic, we can like stream something online together. But like
Yeah. Deviating them.
yeah, exactly. Getting them to not think about it. And also, like, how you eat because you're bored? A lot of people smoke because they're bored.
Yeah.
Because your mouth just needs something to do. So it's always
Yeah.
nice to like give them like some sort of a candy that they can just have in their mouth, like something like chew on, something to bite off. Something that has like very little calories. Also keeping in mind non-communicable diseases, because other things could come in munching on like unhealthy things. Anything along those lines. Also making your place, or like and their place, smoke free, taking away ashtrays, getting clothes that smell like smoke washed, making sure that they don't get reminders, like you form thoughts by associations, you form thoughts by reminders, right? So you need to make sure that things that remind them of smoke, of tobacco, need to not be around. And one thing you can always do is thank them for not letting other people be impacted by secondhand smoke, because that itself kills 1 million people a year. Out of the
Yeah.
8 million that die, 1 million don't choose it. They didn't do anything to die, except be around someone who was smoking. So, right? And keep motivating them. That's from my end.
I have an additional question from my side. Like, do you think like nicotine patches actually helps a person?
I think Manoj is the right person to answer this question. So I'll
So I would, yes, so I would add on to Akshaya's point and I will answer your question. So the first and the foremost thing is people start smoking due to various reasons, but predominantly is stress and them being not accepted in the society or having any problems. They feel like if I start smoking, my problems will disappear. So this is one of the bases, from where everything starts. So be more empathetic to them. Try to understand their point of view rather than putting them in a box, ostracizing them. Hey, you're smoking. You stay away from me. Something like that. So they need support and help of most, right? So they need help. So you need to try to give them that help which they need. Coming to the question of nicotine patches and nicotine, do they help? Yes, nicotine replacement therapy is the most successful method to quit tobacco. This, coupled with other interventional methods, that is your counseling and other cognitive behavioral therapies, are most successful methods of quitting. There is a huge ton of research that is available. At least for the last 20 years, you have solid research done on this, which proves that nicotine replacement therapy, and when it is coupled with other intervention methods, it is the most effective way of quitting tobacco.
Okay.
Hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Yeah. It did. So, like, how long does it take for a person to completely quit the addiction and move on?
I think I'll take that, and then Manoj can add on. I think he will have more points to add on to that. So I strongly believe that every single person is so different in their own way of living that the individual differences are very important to consider when we talk about whether or not, or how long it takes for a person to quit, right? So a lot of indicators impact this: the biological factors, the social factors, any sort of genetic addiction issues that they might have, any sort of environmental factors, like if they're around people who are smoking, how addicted they are, how much of people around them, people in their workspaces smoke, right? So all of these factors have an impact. And when a person tries to start quitting, it at least takes a few months because it's not gradual. You can't just in some cases with completely taking it away does help, but it again depends on individual differences because your upbringing, your biological factors, your environment, these three components have a major impact on how a person gets into behaviors and how a person gets out of behaviors. So, would you like
So, so basically, yes, as Akshaya pointed out, I think I'll be just adding to her points rather than contributing anything new. But I think it comes down to individual differences because it majorly depends on the amount of help that is rendered to them. For example, we were able to see a family in which a child was actually smoking, right? So in that particular situation, this school-going kid wanted to go for therapy, and we found out that the father was smoking, the relatives were smoking, so the child had taken up on it. So when we started treating the parents, that is the father and the relatives, we were also able to positively impact the child into stop quitting. So it comes down to the amount of help that is rendered to them usually, and usually most of the time it does not happen in an overnight. Addiction with nicotine withdrawal is something very strong. As I said earlier, it's like me throwing you into a pool and trying to smother you. So, and when you come out, you'll be gasping for air, right? So that is the kind of level of emotions that a person goes through when they are in nicotine withdrawal. So you need to be empathetic to them. So it will take months together. You need to be with them, provide them support, and help them through, right? It is very easy to get addicted, but very, very hard to quit. So you need to be careful in giving them the amount of support and help that is required. So this is the first part. Second part is the amount of positive reinforcement that the person goes through, right? So let's say if so this happens in let's say if I'm a person who's smoking and I'm setting myself a milestone. Let's say if I'm smoke free for 30 days, I'm going to buy a new projector. So if that is the thing that I'm going to have, I'm going to reward myself. If there are rewards and punishments that will work effectively to the person.
Yeah.
So that's that. So I hope I was able to answer the question.
Yeah. Next question for you guys is like, if a person has a long been addicted to the usage of tobacco, so what are the steps that one must take to prevent any further complications?
I'll take that question. So to prevent further complications, first we need to understand that we need to seek professional help, right? Professional help and medical consultation is the only way where you can stop further complications, right? Because you do not know what is the level of damage that a person has gone in, and the amount of rehabilitation the person requires. So nearly 90% of the people who try to quit smoking do it without counsel, therapy, or medication, out of which only 5 to 7% are successful in quitting. Right? So this is a scientific study as well. So the research papers are available. You can just go look at it. It is completely fine. It is completely really fine to find people, finding it difficult to quit. Right? So the only way we can stop further complications is to seek medical help from professionals and counselors, and be with that. And here is what another interesting thing comes to play: help from friends, good friends who are there to keep you accountable and be there with you to make sure that you do not smoke. Be in a constant surveillance and do not let you smoke. So that is one of the best ways you can stop and prevent further complications.
Okay. How often does addiction to tobacco leads to the substance of abuse, like drugs and all?
I will take that question. So I want to also add on to something Manoj said the previous question and continue to this answer. So it is important that we understand that complications can mean a lot of things. Complications can mean any sort of diseases that they might get. Complications can mean that they have surroundings that are not very conducive. And also, it is possible that people who start smoking at a very early age do not have any sort of guidance. For example, we covered a school in Assam. And in Assam, the predominant culture is to smoke. smoke, consume tobacco in multiple ways, and kids there smuggle tobacco inside their schools in sketch pens, and like they put it underneath their beds, and the principals of the schools there were actively trying to get them to stop. They have tried all sorts of mechanisms, but kids there, when they're born, in order to put them to sleep, they're given alcohol. Like there are tribal communities that practice this as a usual thing for them, right? So there are some circumstances that work that way, but there are some other circumstances where kids who are very young, like we've had children come to us and say, in workshops, ma'am, I know someone who started smoking when they were like 5 years old, and I keep telling him, he's like, why do you do this? And that kid is like, what's your problem? And that kid obviously does not have any sort of parental guidance or any sort of social support system, which is a contributing environmental and social factor for the kid who starts. So, considering the fact that a lot of people come from any sort of guidance at all, it is very common for people to start smoking anything else or start consuming a lot of other things that are detrimental to their health without even knowing or without even having anyone to stop them from doing it, because all they see is that temporary release that they think they feel, they believe they feel. And tobacco is considered to be a gateway drug, which means it is like the opening pathway for a lot of other substances for people to consume. It also consists of several radioactive substances. It consists of so many things that are so awful for them, but that temporary, immediate reward that they think they get is, is a pathway by itself for other substances. So that would be. Manoj, would you like to add?
Yes, I would like to just add one more point to it. So what happens is that people who tend to smoke, right? After a certain point of time, let's say if a person is feeling elated, so-called relaxed in one single cigarette, after a few months, they start feeling only better if they take more cigarettes, like let's say 5 cigarettes. So the number of cigarettes increases logarithmically. So at after one point of time, no matter how much cigarette they smoke, right, they need that constant need for smoking. So they start smoking on a very regular interval basis. So when they are not able to, achieve what they were achieving before due to this logarithmic expansion, they start actively seeking for other drugs, other products that can give them this high. So there are a lot of cases where people from smoking had started to do drugs, alcohol, and so on and so forth. So it keeps adding to the problem. So that is why, I mean, we as an organization feel tobacco is the most evilest thing on this planet for now.
Yeah.
Hope that answers.
So I would like to ask about your organization now. So on your journey as a volunteer, what were the prime obstacles faced when spreading awareness against the use of tobacco? Also, like as a volunteer, did people reject your offer to help? If yes, like how did you convince them?
All right. Okay. So I think both of us will take this. I'll go first, and then like I think Manoj can go after that. So when it comes to volunteering, I think at this point we have our hearts and souls invested into this. That we wouldn't exactly call it volunteering at this point, but. We face a lot of obstacles. So I will answer obstacles, and then Manoj can take up a few more obstacles, and then we'll talk about what happens when people reject our offer to help. So first, obstacles we face is predominantly funding. In a lot of capacities, because it's not because we're not able to get funding, it's because we're not allowed to get funding right now, because the government has to give us a little few forms. Little few means like 5 different forms we have to collect in order for us to be able to collect donations or take money for any sort of services we make. So it doesn't mean that we will be taking money, big once we're allowed to do that. We will still run in pro bono capacity in a lot of places, but the idea of being able to actually collect donations and make this organization more sustainable would be very helpful. Also, volunteers, people when they volunteer at a time in their life where they're able to spend time, in an unpaid capacity, which means it's rolling. Like people come, people go, people keep coming, and people keep going. There are some people who stay, but in the end of the day, we know that the majority of the organization will keep rotating and changing, which means conduct so many interviews all the time, and it's the same thing, and you have to induct them all over again. We need to get to know them all over again, and it's tedious, and it is one of the most difficult things I face, at least. So Manoj, would you like to take a few more?
Of course, so as Akshay said, funding is a major problem because when we are reaching out to schools, we need stable internet connection for both us and them. We need enough resources that we need to procure. Like for example, though most of the research-based, research, for the research that we are conducting, we need special softwares to analyze. There are special software to analyze the data that we are collecting, but since we are not able to procure them, we are doing it manually. So imagine a person has to sit through 5,000 data sets and manually pick out and then do the data interpretation. So it is a little tedious for us. Again, the most heart-wrenching thing is that as Akshay said, again, it's a rolling basis. So people come and people go. It is so hard for us to say goodbye because as an Hibiscus Foundation is not an organization. I would call it as a family, and we treat everyone as a family here. We are a very close knit group. All the 70 of us invariably meet at least once in a day. So half the time we exist and we talk, but then at least once we say hi to each other through text or something. So it's a very close knit group. And when they are leaving out, so it is very hard for us to say goodbye to them. And training, when a new person comes in, the sheer amount of closeness that we share makes them a little, oh no, what is this? I'm being smothered with love. What is happening here? So it kind of puts them into a stasis. But then we try to always accommodate them and help them. So this is one part of the problem. The most important thing when we go actually into the field and when we start interacting with people is that we have cultural barriers, language barriers, which is very, very huge. So in the south, our climate is more hot, and there are a lot of geological factors, geo-environmental factors that does not promote smoking predominantly compared to the northern states, right? When it is very cold, like when you go to the extreme north, like the mountain ranges and all that cold, there is a lot of cold, and people try to use this as a coping mechanism to be with cold. So when there's in those conditions, it is a cultural effect. It's not just happening in the last 50 years or 60 years, it's happening from generations to generation. So when you want to decolonize and desensitize a cultural effect, it is very huge. So the first and the foremost thing when you come into a session and talk to a person who's been culturally biased, they will never listen to you. They will start hurling a lot of things at you at first. So you need to be patient and you need to be empathetic to tell them like, hey, we are here to help you. We are here with you. Second is language barrier. I mean, like when we go talk to the people. So I will tell my personal experience. So when I was trying to do the workshops in vernacular languages, I had to learn a lot of new vocabularies. Though I am fluent in Tamil, the local vocabulary differed from one city state to another. Like the vocabulary used in Coimbatore was way different from the ones in Chennai. So it was like a whole new level of learning for us. So this is one thing. Attitudes. So when this is also another problem when we are trying to talk to a person who is a little older than us. So they'll be like, I know everything. I have seen the entirety of life. Your age is not even half of my experience. So what are you trying to teach me? So these are a few barriers that we find every day. But then at the end of the day, we are in this together, and we as an organization are passionate about making the change because we have personally seen the ill effects of tobacco. I was working in cancer research, and I have personally seen the effects what it can destroy a family. And you just stand there as a researcher, you are not able to both help the client, the patient, and you're not able to help the family, and you're just standing there. Inevitably you'll have to endure this pain. So when most of us in the organization has seen this pain, so we wanted to make that change. So that's how we started off, and continued in that path barrier. So there are a lot of barriers, and we are actively trying to resolve them. So that is that.
I will add a little bit to that. So, Manoj spoke about his personal experience. So, I would say both of us speak certain vernacular languages. It is our mother tongue. But the first time we had to do it, no one told us we had to do it. So, we were there and we were speaking in English. And, we were just conducting the session. And the children go, "Can you please speak in this language?" And we're like, yes, if that if that is better for you, yes. And then that is when we actually felt an impact. Despite us struggling, one of our moderators at that point conducted the session for 4 hours instead of 1.5, because that was how difficult it was for him to convey what he had to. And when it comes to one other personal experience, and when the help wasn't exactly rejected, but it did feel like we were being questioned to our souls at a point. So there was this one teacher in one of the sessions, and he just cut one of us off, and he goes, "So why is tobacco? I mean, why is nicotine so bad if it's like in potatoes?" We're like, "Okay, sir, please, take a seat. We'll explain this to you." And so it actually is. So we do know that nicotine is present in a lot of substances we consume, but not in the same quantity and the intensity and the level of thickness in the cigarettes that's available. It would take you 50 kgs of tobacco to consume the same level of nicotine that is available in like one cigarette. And I'm trying to explain this to him.
Potatoes.
And he's
Potatoes.
just like,
50 kg of potatoes. Yeah.
and I'm trying to explain this to him, and he's just going on about like how it is so freely accessible. I'm like, "Sir, I feel like you didn't quite hear what I said." And he just had to continue and argue with us, and it almost seemed like he was promoting the culture in some sort of a manner, even by putting that sort of thought in people's heads, saying, "Oh, I like tobacco. I mean, I like potato, so maybe I'll like cigarettes as well." Like kids are very impressionable. We were dealing with 8th graders at this point, and very very young people who now think a teacher of theirs is potentially a source for them to get cigarettes from. Like that's how he sounded in the session. It was pretty traumatic, and we were very taken aback that a teacher by himself would talk in this sort of a manner. And when it comes to just rejecting help, again, like Manoj said, it has a lot to do with the sort of culture they've grown up in and the sort of space they're given in schools. Like obviously when we went to the school in Assam, we knew that we potentially had an impact on a few people, but we also know that the next year they're going to smuggle it in maybe a pencil box, and if not a sketch pen. It is what it's just how it's going to be, and we'll have to do a lot more to change that in the future.
Okay. Literally, thank you for your wonderful words, and it was really enlightening for us. We have few questions from the chat box, so I'm going to read it out to you. So, what are the major effects of tobacco consumptions on society and environment as well?
I would like to take that. Okay. So in terms of when you say societal effect, so let's say a person who is smoking is affected with cancer, right? That person is going to need a lot of medicines. That person is not going to need a lot of medical help in terms of infrastructure and availability of resources, right? So the government will start having to invest in it, right? So so what happens is that people have this wrong notion that, hey, tobacco industry is actually giving jobs to people, and the government is getting money out of it. But let me tell you, if you want reports, I will give you a ton of reports right now, but it is not contributing to the society in any manner. Actually, they are draining the economy. The economy is actually drained by tobacco industries, because let's say if I have to invest on this one patient in terms of medications, I have to invest on research and development. I'll have to invest on building new hospitals. I have to invest on electricity. I have to invest on workforce. I have to invest on a lot of other things. So it's going to create a chain reaction, a ripple effect in all sectors of the society, not just one, but all the sectors of the society, right from production to the higher level management. So it is going to drain the economy, so which will directly affect in your taxes, which will affect in your quality of goods that you're getting in other areas as well. So prices keeps increasing, everything goes into an a plummeted negative impact in the society. So that is one. The second part was what was the second part?
How does it affect the environment?
Environment. All right. So first things first, second hand smoking. You are going to kill a lot of people who are going to be around you. The tobacco industry requires to cut down a lot of trees in terms of producing the cigarette, because paper is one of the most important raw materials that is required. So yeah, they're cutting down forests. Second, tobacco production itself. So to produce tobacco, you need to clear off forests, farming lands, and so on. To actually help in production of tobacco. So that is going to environmentally affect, right? Third, the number of wastes that are going to be produced from these industries have a very, very, very harmful effect in society. So the waste will be discharged and disposed in not in a proper way usually, because we don't have the resources to clearly dispose them, so properly dispose them. So that will negatively impact the society and the environment. So it has a lot of negative effects in terms of economy and in terms of your environment. So yeah.
If I may just add to that, child labor is a persistent and an active problem in the tobacco industries. They take children to start rolling tobaccos because they have small hands and it's easier for children to actually roll. And because of that, they also get free labor. They get unskilled and free labor, which means they get more profit. And what the child gets is absolutely nothing except deteriorated health and no education. And at this capacity, knowing it's illegal, it's multiple industries actually use child labor as a mechanism to make more money. So that's something I wanted to.
We have next question from Sarthak Mathur. So once an individual has successfully managed to quit tobacco, how big a concern is tobacco re-addiction? Like, can a person get into re-addiction after quitting?
Yes, of course, it's going. Akshay, would you like to go ahead?
No, you go ahead and I'll add on.
Right. It is a potential threat. So anytime you quit, right? The first after you quit and when you're smoke free for a certain amount of time, the first year will be very, very crucial. So you have to keep yourself away from triggers. You have to keep yourself away from other potential influences, because again, as I said earlier, one single cigarette stick is all that is going to push you down to the path again. So it is a very much imminent problem that a person might face. So re-addiction is real.
I would like to. So I, trained as a counselor, and I am a training counselor right now, and I've worked with a lot of patients who've been trying to quit tobacco. And whilst working with them, you realize that it is, like how they say when you have cancer, you're never really cancer free. You're cancer free, but you're in remission. You can always expect it to come back. You should always be ready. You should always be checking whether it is a thing or not, right? So that way, you also need to keep checking if tobacco addiction would come back, if tobacco is something that they would remission back into, right? Like it's something that we just expect to happen, and we're ready for the worst case scenario, right? And it is something that people can slip into, and it's something we should be not only ready for, physically, like with the ability to help them, but also emotionally. We need to help them emotionally, and tell them that it happens and it's okay, and we're here to help you get out of it once again if that's what you need from us, right? So I think that's really important to have that sort of a impact. There's a lot of different types of counseling therapies that go into this, and some of them are extremely strict and some of them are more kinder towards the clients. So it depends on the sort of client and the sort of background and the individual differences for us to figure out which method or mechanism to take to help them get out of it once again. So.
We are taking one more question from Aryanshu Aman. So he wants to ask how harmful is passive smoking?
As harmful as active smoking, if not more. So
yeah,
1 million people still die of it every single year. So
true.
So yeah. Manoj, would you like to add to that?
Again, 1 million people die out of secondhand smoking. So it is very, very harmful. 1 million is a huge number. when you see, in a broader perspective, in a large scale picture. So yes, it is more harmful than anything else.
Okay. So, with this, we have come to an end for our today's session. I hope all of you have enjoyed it as much as I have, because I learned a lot about how to quit tobacco and how does it affect our body. So, but before we bid adieu, it gives me a great pride and honor to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing team. We are extremely thankful to Miss Aksheyaa and Mr. Manoj for taking out time from their busy schedule and being a part of today's event. We would like to thank our faculty coordinators for their constant guidance and support, and we are highly indebted to the Hibiscus Foundation of Social Welfare for making this event a success. Last but not the least, we would like to thank our audience for making today's event a grand success. Signing off, this is Ishika Goyal, and it was a great pleasure hosting this event. Thank you
Can
so
I
much.
can I just add something if you don't mind?
Yeah,
So
sure.
just a few things, now that people have actually been here, and I'm sure all of us use social media. So we have a few fun things for them to check out. We have a social media filter for no tobacco. It's like a quiz. So whatever you learned from here, you can go check it out. It's on our Instagram page, and we have our it's a quiz we have called the Question Cloud. It's a thing we have with them. You can always check it out in the link in the bio. And finally, we released something just yesterday. It's a no tobacco song. So if you've heard a TV song by Harry Styles, we sort of appropriated it to politically correct no tobacco version of it. So you can check that out as well. And we also have a no tobacco rap. And finally, we're always looking for volunteers. So if anyone is interested ever, we'd be happy to have you, join us. So we can always find all the links in Hibiscus's bio. And so happy and delighted to hear from you. And we're happy that you hosted us here. And it was a pleasure from our side. And there is no depth that you have towards us. It was a pleasure to be here. So yeah,
Yeah,
with that.
sure. We will definitely share your websites and all in our groups.
Yes, and thank you so much for having us. It's been a pleasure to come back at VIT for us. We have been here before, and to be honest, this is my mentor's alma mater and my mentor's alma mater. So I'm thankful to
Oh,
be here again. So thank you so much for having again. And to all the youth out there, you are the forefront of this battle. You are the future of this world. So join us in this war against tobacco, and you can do a lot just by even a single sharing of a message on your stories or your posts can actually make a difference. A person might just be looking for a sign like, hey, if somebody tells me to quit tobacco, I might quit. So you can be that change. So be the change and make this world a better place to live in. So thank you so much.
That reminds me, one last thing for everyone who's watching this. We have a WHO profile picture generator. So it's like your photo will be with the WHO logo and it'll say World No Tobacco Day. So if you want to, please feel free to use it and put up a story, tag us, tag VIT, YRC if you'd like, and let us know that you're here. And that would be really nice. So go ahead.
yeah. We will definitely do that.